Hello and welcome back to my series on essential survival knots. In a previous video, I discussed how you can use something like a taut line hitch or even a trucker's hitch in order to set up a ridge line between two trees really quickly and effectively in such a way that you can undo it easily as well. But there are many other tensioner knots that we can use in order for us to set up a ridge line or even in everyday life. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can use something like a PRUSIK knot and a toggle in order to set up a tarp really easily and take it down really easily, and how you can use this in everyday life as well. I'm Clarice, welcome to the Live Ready channel. The avid outdoorsman is always looking for ways to simplify outdoor life while still gaining the most enjoyment from that experience. And in some instances, we might only get to pitch camp in the dark, and the last thing you want is to be fiddling with all sorts of lines and knots in the dark when you want to be cooking and just relaxing at camp. So there are a couple of tricks for us to use, especially if we need to set up a ridge line for something at camp. And that can be anything. You can be tying up camo netting around your camp. You could be pitching a tent.Maybe you've lost the grommet on one of your guy lines. I have used a PRUSIK knot in order to set up it was a barrier for my cat to not be able to go downstairs while she was at home. And these things, they're skills that you learn in the wilderness, but they're also skills that then get used during everyday life. So don't underestimate how cool and how useful it is to have a couple of favorite knots up your sleeve and being able to use those to solve problems really quickly at camp, at work, and at home. All right, so PRUSIK knots are really small little loops, and you can make long ones as well, but it's basically just a knot that's folded around itself. And what we use it for is we want to tension the line where it attaches to the ridge line. So this is my ridge line. I've set this up with a taut line hitch over here, which I've made a video about. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'll link it here. And on this side, I've got a running bow line. If you haven't watched that video, go and watch it here as well. Right, now the advantage of a PRUSIK here, I've only folded it around my ridge line twice, but if I pull on this, and I've put a toggle in there, and I'll tell you just now why I put the toggle in that particular place. If I pull on this, it doesn't matter how hard I pull, right, this line, the more tension I put on it, line's actually giving faster, but the more tension I put on this, the tauter it's going to be here, and the more it's going to cinch on itself and it's going to hold on to my ridge line. If you don't believe me, we use PRUSIK knots and PRUSIK loops like this in order to abseil when we go rock climbing, especially in trad climbing. And that PRUSIK knot is basically your safety, your fail safe. So if I'm holding onto the break end of my rope and for whatever reason I slip or I lose control of my break end, I rely on this knot over here to break me from falling. So that is how much we trust this knot, a PRUSIK knot. From the get-go, a lot of people would have a couple of questions to ask here. One, why did you put the toggle between the two triple fishermans? And two, why did you have 2 wraps and then 3? It really is up to you. You can put the toggle in here. What I do find, and this was a climbing trick actually that referred to 2 overhand knots tying together 2 ropes to abseil from. That's a whole other story and a whole other debate. But what you do find is if you make a knot in the middle of 2 knots that you're going to tension, especially something like a double fisherman's, which does come undone really easily, but the minute you have something in between them, it's just that much easier to break up that knot. So I've put the toggle in between the 2 triple fisherman's here. You can use double fisherman's as well, it's all the same. I'll show you how to do it just now. And then the other thing is with a PRUSIK, you can go around the line twice, you can go around 3 times, and now I'm referring to what's sitting over here. It doesn't matter, as long as you are getting the tension that you want from it and you're doing 2 or more wraps around the line, it will tension on itself and you can use it as a tensioner. You don't have to have a toggle with a hole through it. That's very fancy. That's a little bushcraft toggle I made a while ago. You can actually just put a clove hitch on there or something like that. Unless you're climbing with a prusik, you can actually join the rope together in any way you like. If you just want to do 2 overhand knots, then that's perfectly fine. What you want at the end of the day is simply a loop of rope. That's the start of a prusik. You just simply want a circular loop of rope. And all you do, whether there's a toggle in it or not, is you're just going to take that loop of rope and you're going to wrap it around 2 times or 3 times. My rope is a little short for this. Okay. And either way, what you're looking for with the prusik is that you've got a smiley face. Well, this is an upside down smiley face. You've got a smiley face, and underneath the smiley face you've got either 4 or 6, in this case, loops sitting on the rope. And when you pull down on this, it might not have a toggle in it, it might just be the rest of the loop of rope. When you pull on it and you've dressed it nicely, it should hold onto your ridgeline or whatever you're tying it onto. Alright, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually make the loop, and then I'll show you how you can connect that to a tarp. Funny, I had the strangest feeling coming out here earlier that I wasn't alone here. It kind of made me uneasy, and it made me think of a scripture as well. Psalm 34 verse 7, it says, "The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them." And if at any point you're out in the bush and you don't feel easy, like something's not right, just pray that scripture over yourself and know that you are actually not alone. The angel of the Lord will follow you and will protect you and deliver you wherever you go. Alright, let's get back to prusik knots. So obviously I've got the toggle sitting in the middle here, which we can just take out. To get a double fisherman's or a triple fisherman's undone is really easily as well. Usually if you just introduce a little bit of slack into any one of these little loops, it comes undone quite easily, and you'll see now how we make it, and then you'll know how to undo it as well. Okay, just undoing it there. There's my toggle sitting on there. And I undo this side. If you want to know how to make a hole in a toggle, I usually use my Swiss Army knife. It's got an awl on it. Some Leathermans also have an awl on them. You simply just drill a little hole through the toggle with the awl. The nicest way to do it, or the safest way to do it really, is to just take your knife and flatten a little piece of the toggle, because you take out a bit of the material that you've got to drill through with an awl. That makes it a bit faster, so you don't spend as much time working on the toggle. Okay, to quickly show you how I previously linked these 2 ends of the line together, I use a double fisherman's. So it basically comes down to, I want to put those 2 ends together. In order for me to do that, I'm going to take the one side and fold it back over itself, giving myself a nice tail to work with. Okay. Now in the same direction that I folded it, I'm going to start wrapping it around itself and its friend. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to tuck it in underneath those 3 loops, just like that. And when I pull on it, it makes 1/2 of a triple fisherman's knot now. Now I've still got this end, and if I pull on it, this end's just going to come free. That one will stay, but my whole knot is essentially going to come undone. So I pull that through as well, and just repeat the same thing in the opposite direction. Fold it over, and in the same direction that I folded it over, I'm going to wrap it around itself. So 1, 2, 3. You can just do 2 loops if you want, and then tuck it in just like that. Okay, pull on it, dress it a little bit, and now when I pull these 2 ends, the 2 knots are going to come closer to one another, and that is a triple fisherman's knot. And you can use this to join 2 ropes together, and if you want a more in-depth tutorial on how to do that, I made a video on campsite knots a couple years back. I'll link it here, go and have a look. It's got a nice pretty orange and green rope, so it kind of explains that very nicely. If I wanted to use this without the toggle, okay, I'm just going to go around the line 1, 2, and 3, okay, And that once again is my prusik just sitting on my ridgeline. Now I can connect anything to this if I want. If I've got a hook, or I've got maybe another line or something like that, or I've got a toggle on my tarp, I can just hook the toggle through the prusik here. The alternative, if you don't have a whole bunch of toggles on your tarps, but you want to make a whole bunch of prusik loops that have toggles on them, is to just separate this again. Let's do this one, which is what I did earlier. And you can start off with the toggle sitting on the loop itself. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to put it on here again. So I'm just going to slide that through the toggle and repeat the process as it was. Fold it back on itself and then start wrapping from the folded side to the side that it's pointing at. 1, 2, 3 times to make it pretty. Tuck the tail end in, pull it through, dress my knot a little, and now when I pull, I've got the toggle sitting on the middle of the prusik. This is really, really useful to have in your kit bag, in your gear bag, and it's actually so easy to do. Even if you didn't make pretty toggles, you could even just take a few sticks, drill quick holes through them. Lately you get plastic toggles as well. They're the ones that sit on your guy lines or on your tent. They're also a form of toggle. And if you want an in-depth video on how to make toggles, go and check out that video that I've made over here. Right, the other alternative is you don't actually have to make toggles. You can actually just take buttons or anything that you find at the haberdashery. They have got many things that have got holes through them that you can just put on your lines like this. Okay, so now I've got a toggle sitting on my loop, and I can use that just wrapping it around. I'm just doing it twice this time. Okay, and once again I've got a prusik sitting on my ridgeline. Okay, when I pull on it, it tensions on itself, it's not going anywhere. This is a super solid way to tie off a tarp. And the thing about it that makes it nice is if I decide I'm going to move it this way, I can tension it there, and if I decide I want a little bit more slack, or I want to take slack out of my tarp setup, I just move it around on my ridgeline. And I can even use this to hang some of my gear. If I didn't put up a marling spike hitch, go and check out that video, then I could also use a prusik with a toggle on it to hang my gear from my ridgeline, or hang pots and pans, or whatever I felt like. Alright, so that's that. Just quickly, how you can now attach a tarp to this really easily. This tarp has got like a million different colors of guy lines on it by now. It's like part paracord, part orange guy lines. I do that because I can't always find the right amount of trees in the right amount of space. I like to set up tarps from underneath my arm, because in high winds, which we usually have here, lucky me today, no high winds, it's easy to hold a tarp underneath your arm and then connect it to your ridgeline. So just from underneath my arm here, that by the way is also a toggle. Definitely qualifies as a toggle, even though it is a tensioner on your guy line. You could definitely use that as a toggle as well. I could even attach that if I slid it all the way up. Let's say I slid it all the way up to the top. I can literally take that and put it through a prusik if I didn't have a toggle on the line. I just have to make a much smaller prusik, and that would also hook on there. All right. So now if I had, for example, a tarp and I just wanted it to be connected to my toggle or to my prusik here, I can either make a prusik, just another loop on my line on this side. This is an end of the line bowline that's sitting here that's made into a running bowline that I can take off completely. The other alternative is for me to just literally put a loop in my line over here. I can do that using a bowline knot or an overhand knot or whatever I have. Maybe I've got a little spare piece of paracord. Okay, and I literally just hook that over. If I dress it properly, it's going to tension and it's going to hold, and now my tarp can just go on to my line. And when I want to take it down, I literally take that off. I'm not even going to undo my prusik and my toggle. I think it's going to just stay like this from now on. It's quite nice to use. And that comes off easily. It goes in my tarps bag and I pack away. In a matter of 2 minutes, I can have a tarp up or down. So it's a really quick and easy way to set up tarps. It's also really useful for everyday use. Like I said, I've used it around the house. And once you start to get to know these knots and all the uses that you can use them for in the bush, you'll start to find that you naturally actually just end up using them around the house or in everyday life as well. Well, that's it from me on the use of toggles and prusiks. If you've liked this video and you found value here, remember to hit like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. I post a bit more of the everyday live ready stuff on Instagram, as well as tons of useful tips and the occasional hint of what's to come to the YouTube channel in future. Until the next time, live ready.